Oh.
I'd like to get started on time. We have a very hefty agenda tonight. Addie, would you go ahead and call the roll?
Cobb,
Here.
Petrus,
He will be
Oh,
joining
there he-
us on Zoom and
that's-
there he
no,
is.
nope, that's not
No,
him.
Not him? Okay.
Larson,
Here.
Maddox,
Here.
Russell,
Here.
Posh.
Here.
Sheets. Here.
I wanted to add that Councilor Petrus will be joining us from Boston on Zoom. The charter amendments are in effect now, the new ones, so he will be able to vote this evening and make comments, so that's always good to know. We're going to go into executive session. I'm inviting our Councilor-elects Jessica Cohen and Joe DeWitt Foy to join us and to stay in the room with us. So does anybody want to have a motion to make
Yes,
possibly?
I'd like to make a motion that we go into executive session to consider the lease or sale of city-owned real property and to consider confidential information related to the marketing plans, specific business strategy, production techniques, trade secrets, or personal financial statements of an applicant for economic development assistance or to negotiations with other political subdivisions respecting requests for economic development assistance as necessary to protect the interests of the applicant or the possible investment or expenditure of public funds to be made in connection with the economic development project.
And
And-
B, to discuss with the attorney for public body claims or disputes involving the public body that are subject to pending court action or in the judgment of such attorney appear likely to subject to future court action or claim.
I'd incorporate that by reference.
Yes, get a second, please.
Second.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Roll call, Addie, please.
Cobb,
Aye.
Larson,
Aye.
Maddox,
Aye.
Russell. Aye. Posh,
Aye.
Sheets.
Aye. All right, I'm calling this, the next part of our agenda back into order. We're gonna start with legislative review. Director Hannah, are you comfortable sitting back there in the corner?
Used to
Cause
it.
we can make room. Well, we want to bring in chairs, so. You think we should bring in chairs so the councilors-elect can be sitting on the sideline? Is that what you're saying?
I just want clarification on who's at the table discussing the rest of this meeting.
Yeah, so we need to find some chairs for both of you.
Just these.
Can we just roll that?
I'll keep them in, especially at work.
You're at the door, Jessica.
It's a big chair.
All right, the first piece of legislation to discuss is resolution number 260-2025. It's a resolution to suspend enforcement of section 351.09 of part 3 traffic code of the codified ordinances of the city of Cleveland Heights for the period ending December 31st, 2026, or at such earlier time as council may subsequently prescribe on specified streets, providing for on-street overnight permit parking on specified portions of Kensington, Hillcrest, Belmar, Glenmont, and Edgington roads. And I believe this is an annual event. It is an annual, yeah, same as last year. Have anybody has any questions about it? All right, moving on, resolution number 261-2025. A resolution authorizing the mayor to execute a contract with ZoneCo to assist in preparing 2026 zoning code updates for the city of Cleveland Heights. Any questions about this particular ordinance? Director Zamp? I wanted to ask you if you confirm with Director Caldwell that the funds will be encumbered in 2025 and therefore we can spend them in 2026.
Yes, Mr. Chair. We have those funds encumbered, that we decerted an encumbrance that he had from 2024, but he was in the bidding process. And
Okay.
because he was in the bidding process, we could not encumber him in 2025, but it will be encumbered the first 2026, so he should be able to award the contract at that time.
Right.
So it's not new money, that's a wash.
Thank you. Just wanna make sure he can do what the legislation says.
Oh, no.
Counselor Petrus, will you make sure you raise your hand for me so I can see a change in your screen? I'd appreciate it when you wish to speak. Counselor Cobb.
Quick question, when do we expect the work to be done?
It's a 12-month process, so if we kick off in January by the end of next year.
Thank you.
Counselor Posh.
Took University Heights 5 years. So if we're talking to our community, should we say 1 year or should we just sort of see how it actually progresses?
I think we should see how it progresses. The contract is for a certain amount. If we go longer, that impacts the budget, but it doesn't mean that we're still not in the contract. So we wanna take the right amount of time.
So if I could, and this is sort of a related question, and this is a question I had myself and it came up in the public hearing earlier, is why we have not had a third party take a look at the severance zoning changes to provide us an independent opinion, so to speak.
So I don't know if it's relevant to this agenda item. I know it's tangential to it. But certainly I can speak to, number one is, if you look in the RFP for this zoning code update, we did indicate that severance zoning was being developed. And that it's something that the consultant team may be tasked with, not as a complete test, but as something that we would use their services for. And I would just sort of repeat what I said in the public hearing, is that unlike zoning that we've developed, where we're looking for input from a third party, this is a petitioner's petition that the zoning planning staff has been reviewing on our own. So now you're adding in a third level of review. Council can do whatever it wants, but it's an extra level of review that I haven't seen in work when we're reviewing somebody's zoning petition. Certainly in my opinion.
And the fact that the severance does come from a interested third party seems to me to call for some heightened scrutiny of it. That's just my 2 cents worth.
Okay. Moving on to ordinance number 262, 2025. An ordinance declaring a vacancy on Cleveland Heights City Council effective January 1st, 2026. This vacancy is due, as you well know, to the fact that Councilor Petrus will become Mayor-elect Petrus on January 1st. So that's just to acknowledge the council is aware of he will be leaving and his seat will be vacated. Any questions on that one? Resolution number 263, a resolution authorizing renewal of the city's property, vehicle, law enforcement, general employment practices, and public official liability coverage for the city and its employees of the Public Entities Pool of Ohio for the calendar year 2026. Councilor Pasha, do you have a question on that one? Did you get your question answered?
I did get my question answered. It was regarding the policy limit we had for cybersecurity, and it's $1 million policy.
Anybody else?
You know what,
Vice President Russell.
when will that start to be implemented? When they put a plan together for the cyber security?
Unfortunately, Director Prosser is not here this evening, but we can get that answered.
Okay, thank you. I
And
know we're on the deadline, right?
Yes, we do actually have to have
did you say
something in
it
place
was
by
$1
January
million
1. It's a state deadline.
cybersecurity? Do we believe that $1 million for the cybersecurity limit is enough?
Director Hannah.
I'm not sure that I have a basis to have an opinion on that one way or the other. But I think that it's consistent with the city's current coverage limit.
And if I could just follow up, I know that typically with insurance policies, it is not that much more to buy a higher limit of coverage. I think that is something worth exploring and if necessary, amending the policy. But I think that's something we should take a look at to see what a $5 million policy would cost us, or even 10.
Vice President Russell?
Yes, you can also check with, I believe Avon Lake has created legislation and started their process because of the deadline of January 1, as well as Strongsville. So through the workshop that the council had in Strongsville, they talked about the cybersecurity and the deadline, and both of them have legislation put together already because of the January 1st deadline. So you could probably look at their legislation and see if they have any insurance policy that's within their legislation. We'll see.
So I just wanted to, if I might, mention that this piece of legislation actually addresses the city's insurance coverage. The cybersecurity policy is addressed in Resolution 253, 2025, which is on second reading tonight. And so on track to be adopted prior to year end. It was my expectation that Director Prosser was going to be here tonight, but I understand he has a different obligation. But there is a policy that's been developed by the IT department, and council can take action to authorize that tonight in order to satisfy the deadline. Insurance coverage, we got the quote just today, actually, because there was a lot of information that was being provided to the insurance company. I know finance worked very hard on that. The total premium comes in at $1,012,000, which is up about $120,000 from last year. Although there may be a loyalty discount, like last year there was a $50,000 loyalty discount that was applied. But the city's experience with the public entities pool has been very good over the last, going into our fourth year, 23, 4, 5. So we have 3 full years under our belt. And we were at, the city of Cleveland Heights was at over $1 million for its liability coverage in 2021. And so we're really just right back at that level. And in addition to the premium just now coming up to that, the reasons for the increase principally from last year are an updated property assessment that the property evaluation and statement of values that the insurer put together and determined last year that the value of the city structures is actually about $30 million higher than was previously insured. And so they adjusted the values and the coverage up mid-policy without any adjustment in the premiums. And the first impact of that increased valuation is shown in this new premium. We also added a number of vehicles. The vehicle count throughout the city went up, as did the value of the vehicles that are insured. And those are the principal drivers of the increase. The other distinction we've seen, this is all just for council's edification, but versus our prior insurer, is very good and assertive about assigning outside counsel to handle a lot of the routine litigation that's filed against the city. And they seem to strive to find coverage when possible, and that's been, I think, very valuable for the city.
Councilman Cohen?
Given that the liability insurance was just received today, was it explored with the provider whether a discount is possible now that we would have a cybersecurity risk management program in place? And whether that would... It wasn't,
but I think that their expectation is that the city will comply with state law, and so I would characterize that as baked in.
Yep.
Okay. All right. We're gonna move on to ordinance number 264-2025, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into concession agreement with Mary Beth McCann in order to let space at the Cleveland Heights Recreation Center with the goal of providing safe, quality, and consistent exercise classes to members of the public. Any questions on that particular piece? It's jazzercise, yes. All right. Resolution number 265-2025, a resolution ratifying a grant agreement with the Ohio Traffic Safety Office to accept funding awarded through the Impaired Driving and Selective Traffic Enforcement Programs. Chief Britton is here, and if you have any questions, you should be available, right? Any questions? Okay. Ordinance number 266/2025, an ordinance to amend certain subparagraphs of ordinance number 011-2025 and subsequent amending ordinances relating to appropriations and other expenditures of the city of Cleveland Heights, Ohio for the fiscal year ending December 31, 2025.
And just so you all know, it's a little confusing because the titles of this one and the next one are the same, but this one is the final budget adjustment for the year.
Counselor Posh, did you get your question answered on this one?
I did. It was basically looking at this year's budget and comparing it against next year's budget that was proposed to us and the increase amount that is needed to fund our fire department. And I've gotten the answer that it's baked in 2026 and I'm no longer worried.
Okay, glad to hear that. All right. No questions on that one. I'm gonna proceed to the next finance ordinance, number 267, an ordinance to amend certain subparagraphs of ordinance number 011-2025 and subsequent amending ordinances relating to appropriations and other expenditures of the city of Cleveland Heights, Ohio for the fiscal year ending December 31st. I know this isn't 2022.
No, it's 2025. I changed it on ours, sorry.
I'm sorry, that was my mistake,
And these are the
Just
end
go
of
back
year
in time.
transfers.
right?
End of year transfers, yes. Any questions on these?
Yeah, I corrected that.
Okay, I want to ask you, did you prepare the chart?
Yes, it is.
And it says in this column, projected unencumbered balance for 12/31/2025,
Correct.
but there's no figure there. Is that intentional?
There's a figure there. All the way on. It's the column on the right.
Why I pointed?
Oh, I was looking for one number,
Oh, one number.
the projected number for 12/31/25.
Well, that's for each fund.
It's for each individual one.
Okay, so you didn't total it for me at the end, but that's okay.
Well,
I can
we're
use my
transferring
calculator.
out, no, sorry, maybe it's not on there,
It's
but
the
we're
memo,
transferring
though.
out just about $16.4 million.
It says
out
in
of
the
general
in the
fund.
memo,
You said the total is
Okay.
in it.
Yeah, in the memo. It's
the total is in the memo.
You know, you kind of go batty when you start to look at all this legislation, so
That's
forgive
right.
me. Forgive me. All right, the resolution 268, which is also up for consideration for adoption this evening. Resolution number 268, a resolution authorizing the mayor to execute agreements with the city of Shaker Heights, Ohio, and the Northeast Ohio Regional Sewer District to provide for the construction, cost sharing, and maintenance of amenities included as part of the Horseshoe Park project. This evening, we have with us the Sewer District CEO, Kyle Dreyfus Wells, and the Director of Watershed Programs, Matt Sharver. All right.
They're all there, right? They're
Back in the corner too. You people like these corners. Does anyone have any questions for these people about this particular piece of legislation?
Madam President, if I might, I'm not with
Director
the sewer
Hammond.
district, but the one piece of legislation actually authorizes two contracts. The first one is the contract that's between the two cities and the sewer district. The second is a maintenance agreement between the city of Cleveland Heights and the city of Shaker Heights. So I think your question about questions for the sewer districts relates to the first of those, the Film Brook project or the Horseshoe Park project.
Okay. Any questions about those? All right. Thank you.
Thanks for having us.
Counselor Posh.
Can I just make a quick statement? Just looking at these plans, we've been part of this process for a long time. I've been watching it even when I wasn't in council. I'm pretty excited about the opportunity and I'm thankful for the sewer district. I think we're all thankful for the sewer district and all their work. Thankful for the city of Shaker Heights partnering with us in all this. I just felt like that had to be said. We haven't really talked about it in a whole lot of context. But just I think thank you from Cleveland Heights.
All right, thank you so much. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
Second readings. A resolution requesting the county fiscal officer to advance taxes from the proceeds of the 2025 tax year collection pursuant to section 321.34 of the Ohio Revised Code. Any questions on that? It's an annual legislation that we need to. Okay, moving along to ordinance number 252-2025, an ordinance authorizing the renewal of the agreement with the Cuyahoga County General Health District for the provision of public health services to the city and its residents, providing compensation therefore, also an annual piece of legislation. Any questions on that one? Resolution 253-2025, resolution adopting the City of Cleveland Heights cybersecurity program in accordance with Ohio Revised Code, section 9.64C. Any questions? I got a smile out of Counselor Sheets, I like that, I'm good. Ordinance number two.
President, I'm sorry, I was looking back at the Board of Health agreement. I just want to mention it's a 2-year agreement from the beginning of 26 through the end of 27.
Thank you for clarifying that,
Sure,
Director,
sorry about
appreciate it. So we won't have one at the end of this year, the 26. And Director Prosser is not here, so but does anybody have any questions that they wanna ask him later, or are you ready to vote this evening? Or this is second reading, so
It's required by the end of the year.
okay. The cybersecurity program. An ordinance amending ordinance number 254-2025, second reading, an ordinance amending chapter 142 Arts Commission of the Codified Ordinances of Cleveland Heights, Ohio, and repeal its prior inconsistent provisions. I have a question for you, Counselor Cobb. Will you explain why you have 3 members to be appointed by the mayor and the remainder appointed by council? Please.
It is my recollection that Mayor Kudas suggested that we keep the 3 mayoral appointments when we amended the legislation. No? I could have sworn that's what I heard.
No, it's been my position and still my feeling that the best way to do this is do it the way we do all the other appointments. That'll ensure they get done. You're not working on 2 different schedules and worrying about who's doing what, but that's.
All right. We're to go up and have the replay because I would not have left those 3 in there. And maybe it was someone else that suggested it.
It was
He's
not,
looking at me now.
no, it was really, it was
No,
not.
Tony's everybody.
Will we have a quorum if there's no mayoral appointments to run the meeting?
So I think that I was the person who initially suggested that we consider allowing some of them to remain with the mayor. But this is a body that makes decisions by consensus, so if I'm not in the majority, so be it.
I knew it was somebody that had.
Mayor in their name?
And now that you do mention it,
It was a mayor, but
it was
mayor-elect.
Mayor-elect said that.
So what would you like to do, Counselor Cobb?
I will do whatever council wants to do. I think the big thing is that we get some appointments and we get this committee up and running.
Right.
But I'd also note that this is the second reading of this and no one said anything on the first reading.
I wasn't gonna say. I was just glad.
No, I know that Tony had said that to begin with.
No, I'm just saying, I'm just saying as a policy, it's just that it's the smoother policy for probably half a dozen reasons I've given you guys over time. But the main one being that you'll always have a deeper reach into the community when you're looking for citizen participation. And
And
you
they're
know,
all
we're
in the
set
same
up,
pool.
we're set up to do this and I don't, there's no reason why this mayor or any mayor, I haven't got to the punchline yet. There's no reason why this mayor or any mayor cannot make suggestions to council. I mean, you know, that's, you know, that certainly doesn't preclude that.
Counselor Bosch.
Can I suggest that we pass this and then in January or February or March or sometime in 2026, we revisit it if we need to? I mean, this is a commission that has been not being able to be utilized just because we haven't been able to make any appointments.
Well, here's some good news. Applicants have been coming in.
Yeah.
Well, that's,
They're pretty steady, so
so if we approve this, we can start filling it
I don't
like
have a vote.
immediately.
I don't have a vote on this.
You will in January.
Does anyone else want to do an amendment, or shall we consensus to move it forward as it is right now and then come back and revisit it in the next year? I'm gonna ask you because you're retiring.
Right? You too.
Go ahead, you too. Weigh in.
I still think that it's important for the administration to have a voice on those commissions, and so I still support that. I think from a strategic standpoint, there may be a representative, something very clearly a project that the administration might be working on where I think it's helpful to just be able to make that appointment. So I'm completely fine with that.
Vice President Russell.
I'm fine.
Okay.
Sorry, Tom.
I'm hearing that we can move forward with this legislation this evening, so that's what we'll
Go
do.
back in January.
Okay, the next one is fairly non-controversial, I think. Ordinance number 255-2025, an ordinance amending section 140.02, members of chapter 140 Cleveland Heights Climate and Environmental Sustainability Committee of the codified ordinances of Cleveland Heights to expand the resident membership of the committee from 7 to 9 members to allow for greater resident participation. Thank you, Councilor Cott, for bringing this forward.
You're welcome. Any changes? I think Mayor
Down to the
Kudo
point.
wanted to have some mayoral appointments for
I
this.
think I wanted 11.
Okay.
He took his hand down. Councilor Petrus, did you wish to speak up?
He's
No,
just
I was
clapping.
thanking Councilman Cott for doing this. There are so many people who are interested in this committee, and so I think that it's great that we're able to make it more accessible to residents.
So who's doing the appointment? Who does it?
No council.
She's teasing you.
Yeah,
All right.
We allow teasing.
yeah, we can get a pass.
Thank you, Mayor-elect Petrus and Councilor Petrus. Ordinance number 256-2025, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to enter into agreement with the Coventry Village Special Improvement District, Inc., Coventry SID, for an advance of $40,000 at 0% interest, and declaring the necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure. Any questions on this one?
And this is regarding the funds from the county.
Yeah,
Not getting
That don't come in until, I don't know when the first payment is, but it's later than they need it, so. All right, no questions? The next one is
Last time.
resolution number 257-2025, a resolution providing for a contribution to the 2025 Coventry Winter Festival and Lantern Parade and declaring necessity that this legislation become immediately effective as an emergency measure. So, opposed to that or want to make a comment?
Are they doing bids for that amount? For the amount, will they have to do bid, what was the criteria?
37,400.
It already happened.
You did?
Yeah,
Okay.
Saturday. The weather impacted it,
Mhm.
but they had a lot of turnout earlier in the afternoon with families and kids putting the lanterns together in the space that we own. I think I heard that one of you guys came down there on Saturday to let them in.
Earlier in the week, but yes.
Okay,
Okay.
yeah. So it was, the parade wasn't as well attended in the past, but it was cold and it was windy, but you had a lot of kids turned out earlier to make the lanterns.
All right, I'm gonna move on to the next one because we're running out of time here. Ordinance number 258-2025, an ordinance authorizing the mayor to execute a property transfer and indemnification agreement with RP Derbyshire LLC concerning the real property located at 2450 Derbyshire Road. This is the Alcazar. Any questions on this one that haven't been answered yet? Skip over it. You got it. Ordinance number 259, an ordinance amending ordinance 12-2020 passed on February 18th, 2020. Extend the term of that certain tax increment financing exemption under ordinance 12-2020 for an additional 30 years pursuant to Ohio Revised Code section 5709.51. This is top of the hill. And not heard any pushback. Okay. Okay, no, that's a good point. All right, so my dependable right hand here literally has made the point that the third readings are both on the agenda for a lengthier discussion. So we'll bring those up and we'll move to the next item on the committee of the whole, which is severance zoning.
Oh.
Okay? Thanks, Eddie. Yeah. Just let me get organized. When I go into council, I won't be organized.
Melanie, Melanie, here's your chair. Ryan? Anthony wanted to get some more chairs, I'm sorry.
more chairs.
I know, you've been standing a long time. Two people left. Thank you, Anthony, two people left. Thank you.
I'll use one. Yes, yes.
Okay, I would like each council person to weigh in on severance and where are they at in terms of voting on the legislation this evening. Councilor Maddox.
I'm fully prepared based on the timeline and the feedback that I've received. I'm fully prepared to move on with this tonight. I'm concerned about several reasons to hold this up. Number one, I think we can always continue to make adjustments and have that conversation. But I also want to make sure, just based on conversations that I've had with not just around this project, but other projects in the city, making sure that our timelines are proper for our developers, making sure that we're very clear about the things that we want to do, especially concerning severance. And I want to make sure that we're sending the right message back to this particular organization because this could be the only time we have to do this. And I just want to make sure that absolutely we need to get it right. But I think in terms of the timing, going into the new year, I want to make sure that they can move forward with that planning. I think we're closer than we've ever been before. And I don't see a large reason to put that off. But again, I understand some of my colleagues don't feel that way. And I absolutely think we also need to hear from our elected, soon to be elected officials as well to weigh in on this because it's really discussing the future of this. But I'm completely fine with moving forward tonight.
Thank you. Councilor Sheets.
I am not in favor of moving it forward tonight, and it's primarily because I had questions about the financing portion. Once we get past the zoning, the development part. So who's coming into these storefronts and you know, like how do we know that this is gonna be enough space? So I have talked to Ryan about it and I asked, you know, hey, listen, do you have your financing model in place? And it's not in place yet. Do you have, you know, prospective, you know, businesses or brokers, developers, pardon me, that's interested in coming into the project and they're not in place yet. So I do think it's not ready because how do you know, we prepared a zoning, but you don't know who's gonna go there or if that's gonna be enough space. So it may be revisions that will have to take place. So I think it's premature right now.
Thank you. Current Councilor Petrus.
Thank you. I really appreciate the work that Ryan and the staff have put into this, and I really appreciate all of the recent work that has been done to make this an even better proposal. As is the case for all the other council members, I've received a lot of emails both in support and in opposition to this zoning overlay. And seeing that so much good work has been put into this recently, Ryan has been very accommodating to a lot of the things that have been brought up. thank him so much for that. I think that there's no harm in us waiting until after the new year so that we can make sure that this is as good as possible. And so for that reason, I would support waiting until after the new year.
Counselor Cobb?
I'm gonna be supportive of what the mayor-elect wants to do with this. It is his administration that is gonna be burdened, not burdened, will have this legislation in place. I will say that I do have a concern, and that is that Namdar owns this property. And we are trusting that Namdar is gonna do the right thing if we pass these zoning changes. And that's a risk. In the past, I know that Namdar has wanted to subdivide this property, and that was blocked by the Board of Control. Under this proposed zoning, they will have the ability to do the subdividing that the city previously prevented. I think it's provisions like that that need to have that we need to make sure that we're aware of what we're enabling them to do. And as I said earlier, I'd like to have this quickly looked at by a third party to give us an independent opinion on it.
Counselor Posh?
Well, I'm now conflicted because the mayor-elect is thinking that we should take maybe I don't want to put words in anybody's mouth, but wants to take a pause. Are we looking at doing this in January? Are we looking at doing this in February? Or is it going to be a longer review? I'd like to have that. I'd like to better understand that. I came into this meeting supportive, wanted to move forward. We knew 18 months ago that this was coming down the pike and we'd be asked around this time to approve it. We don't have site control. I mean, for all the things that Council-elect and Planning Commissioner Chair Cohen mentioned about the need to get this passed and get it passed quickly, I agree. Many of you know that I live with one of the zoning experts in the state of Ohio, nationally recognized. She has looked at this, feels comfortable with it. None of this is set in stone. That's what's sort of interesting. I mean, we are not signing anything away. I mean, we can make any changes anytime we want, even if we vote for this today. So the whole issue of the sky is falling, we can get a better deal. I mean, we've been waiting for 10, 15 years for a better deal to come around. We don't have site control. I think we need to act. I am prepared to hold for December. I would really like us to see us move forward in January or February though. And I'd like to have the reassurances that we will bring this up to a vote in January if we need some more time, or February if we need more time. But otherwise, I would like to vote yes on this tonight.
You would like to vote on it this evening?
I'd like to vote on it this evening.
Vice President Russell?
Well, since this is my last meeting, I am going to support the mayor. This will be his administration and his new council, and I want him to be able to weigh in on it and guide the ship however he needs to guide the ship. So I am going to support the elected mayor.
Councilor-elect Cohen, did you wish to speak?
Sure, given myself and Councilman-elect DeWitt Foy's comments at the public hearing where we both announced our intention to vote in support of these ordinances should we be elected, I'm not sure what the difference would be between the current council voting for this tonight and if we wait, because my understanding is if we only need 4 votes to pass it and we do a quick whip count, this would pass in January the same as it would in December. So from a functional basis, and I actually agree with Councilman Maddox.
I think I'm on the vote tonight.
No, Councilor Posh.
Oh.
And President Larson hasn't indicated, and
That's right.
but I think that, I agree with Councilman Maddox that we consistently in this city give a message to people who want to do business with us that we are going to review things to death. And this has been thoroughly vetted by a planning commission that's been appointed for precisely this purpose. And our planning staff, who's second to none, and have made outreach and worked with other folks outside of the city. If it's not in a contracted third party agreement, in a collegial, asking for outside input on this. And I want to echo Councilman Pasha's comments that this is entirely amendable. This is not a sky is falling. This is the foundation for to move forward with financing. This is not meant to be the end all be all for what severance looks like. This is to create a foundation from which we can go out and attract the development that we want to see here. And I think that delaying this any further will send the wrong message, and I frankly don't think it's necessary.
Councilor-elect DeWitt Foy.
So I spoke at the previous hearing, so I won't repeat all of that, but to reiterate that I am supportive of this moving forward. If it is held back until January or beyond, I would be happy to vote in the affirmative on this. This is a big thing and it feels like that, but this is the first step, the first real tangible step to moving it forward. I agree with Councilman Maddox that we sometimes do, in our attempt to get as much public feedback as possible, we let things languish and we don't move forward even when we do have enough information to move forward. So I think this has been a very robust, thorough process. This does not mean that this is the last step. This is really the first step. We need to move forward for all of the financing conversation, which will be a massive conversation amongst the community, amongst the council. But in order to get there, in order to get a real conversation with developers to actually come in to propose things on this site, we do have to get through this first step. So I see from my perspective no need to wait until the next council is seated. But of course it's up to the current council to make that decision.
Vice President Russell.
I just have a question. What is Ryan's absolute deadline? Oh, where is that? Is that from, did I hear it February?
February 20th.
February 20th. So
But I need more time regardless. I just had committed to NAMDO that we at least get this piece of the equation done this year. We have a lot more to do.
I understand, but I was thinking with Posh, January 1st, what's the first meeting? January 5th would be actually the first meeting. That would give Councilman Keats an opportunity to get her questions answered.
She would not be on council on January 5th.
No, I'm saying before the first of the year, she still would have an opportunity. Yeah, she doesn't end until December 31st, correct? I understand that. It may not be another meeting, but she's still a council person, so she still get a chance to email her questions and get her questions answered that may feel good for her. And maybe relay that to other council people who are on council to what her questions are and get her answers done. That's all I'm saying. So that would give an opportunity for the council to share, and before she leaves, to be able to share what her opinion is as well, because by right, she has a voice here until December 31st. So in the 5th will still meet his deadline.
Councilor Maddox, then I'm gonna make my statement.
I was simply gonna say, I absolutely respect the administration, and it does make a lot of sense. You want an opportunity to meet with the staff and sit down and kind of gauge how you wanna move forward with that. I would just simply suggest for the council, if we don't do this tonight, that they really try to do whatever they can to make sure this is done within the first 60 or 90 days of the year. And the reason I'm stating that is it's not just Ryan that's watching this, it's multiple developers and opportunities that are also watching this. It's no secret, I know many of you know that I launched a community development corporation. And in doing so, I had a conversation with developers across Cuyahoga County, and I can't tell you how many times they're looking for any opportunity to work around Cleveland Heights because of that process. Because they feel like sometimes we take 2 steps forward and then 10 steps back in terms of engagement or feedback. And we know our community is absolutely engaged on everything, but there comes to a point where we do have to pull the trigger on some things. And so even, I'm not saying let's go ahead and rush this, but just make sure that that timeline makes sense. And if you're pausing this or holding this up, it's very clear to the public and anyone else who's watching is looking for an opportunity to come and do some of this citywide. Because I don't think we've always articulated that. I think there's some good reasons discussed here at the table why. It's just making sure that there's that end date, that time to at least try to articulate getting this done. Because the worst thing that could possibly happen is this doesn't get done at all. And that would set him up for a very difficult conversation to move forward, but it also speaks broader to any other development projects that are coming through the city. And so I think if nothing else, this one has to be right because people are looking at this, I think, more than any other project that we've done. And so again, if it's not rushed, at least making sure that you commit to some type of time frame in that first quarter of the year. Because conversations again.
Before February.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
Otherwise, you're looking at a serious set of issues in terms of other projects moving forward in the city.
Vice President Russell, was there a recommendation that came, because this was assigned to your committee, both these pieces of legislation were assigned to your committee. Did you have a recommendation that came out of the committee?
We did not, we had not voted it out of our committee. It was still in our committee. I think we had so much going on that day, it was never voted out of our committee.
No.
Yeah, there was no recommendation.
All right. I'm gonna make my statement now.
And also wanted to say that one thing that we did talk about in that meeting was having a 3D visual of what could happen at Severance. And I still think that is truly needed, and I don't think it's far from being fetched where you can't do it. I was saying, being a little funny, that HGTV can, do a house on a computer and have you walk through it and furniture and everything. We should be able to do something like that in a 3D visual with that space. Not saying that that's going to go in those individual boxes, but something similar. So I think people have a better way to move things forward when they can see things visual as well and understand it. It's easier to understand.
Thank you.
So thank you, I'm sorry.
It's all right. Ryan, you spent hours working on this. I appreciate you so much. And the Cleveland Heights staff have committed many hours of their time, as well as the Planning Commission. You know how engaged everyone is about the opportunity you have offered to affect change and development at Severance through all the crowdsourcing. It would be better if we had another option, like someone offering to buy the property from Namdar with a commitment to make the town center we all desire and we deserve. Ryan Porter and SAG have said they know developers. I'm not hearing about anybody coming forward. The Planning Commission recommended version 1 to council after their November meeting. And then this evening we have version 2 after changes were made based on the November meeting discussions and the December meeting discussions. That being said, I would like to have an independent third party review the proposed zoning so that I'm confident the now modified zoning reflects the dreams and visions we've all been hoping to see. The third party review will be from legal and technical standpoints. I'm also interested in more robust and measurable public engagement about the rezoning as it reflects on our desires. We need the public to weigh in on the zoning proposal. Can we do both? Propose the form-based zoning overlay and demonstrate how it could incorporate a vibrant vision for a reimagined Severance Center. Whatever council needs to do early in 2026 to continue consideration for the zoning overlay to create a village we can all treasure, I will be there early in 2026. I am not ready to vote on the zoning legislation this evening. That being said, does anyone see a need to meet on Wednesday to discuss this again? Wednesday the 17th, we have a meeting set up. Does anybody see a need to do that? Then in that case, we will not, Councilor Maddox.
I don't know if I see a need to do that, but I do think there should definitely be some in-depth conversation about how to move forward with that third party request. And what the timeline looks like sooner than later.
Yeah.
I don't know if that meeting could be used for that, but I do think if the council goes that route, I think it would be helpful to start that process.
Yeah. Immediately. Thank you, appreciate that. I'm seeking as we speak, so that's really important as well. So at this point, we will not. Counselor-elect Cohen.
Just a note that we did have third-party legal, we did have outside counsel retained by the city that reviewed the planning, the zoning overlay, and provided their recommendations that were incorporated at the November Planning Commission meeting. So, and because we have had, I know through planning staff and welcome Director Zamp to put in, we did have other planning directors, regional planning directors look at the code and provide their informal opinions. But perhaps we could ask them to provide a formal letter or a formal opinion because these things have already been done. They just haven't been written up. They've been done as informal input into the process.
I think, if I might, you're referring to Todd Hunt from
Yes,
Retzel.
correct.
And I think that was potentially a less comprehensive review than, I'm not exactly sure what's being suggested, but it sounds like it might involve more development aspects, technical aspects. And his was more legal, kind of working on the initial draft from October and providing input and some commentary for the planning commission and for the planning department.
Okay, so we will not be voting tonight on 226 and 227.
Can I?
Addie, you gotta speak up for me.
What about 17th?
That's what I asked and nobody said
Okay,
anything.
I just wanted to make sure. I
Yeah,
just, we
so
kind of
that's about the 17th.
breezed over.
So what, I'm sorry, but I can't help it, I just like actionable items. So if you're not gonna use 17 for anything, when would you discuss the next steps for that? Cause I know, it sounds like, obviously I won't be here, I just wanna get some sense of what, if you guys aren't doing that on Wednesday, when would you start that process and what would that look like?
We can talk with Director Hannah on Thursday when we had our leadership meeting. I'm bringing it up actually.
Okay.
So the process is gonna start now.
And then,
Can I speak for a minute? I just wanna
Just a minute.
1 minute. I just wanna clarify something, cause I think this is really important. I feel like this is right for the new time. We are creating a zoning code that has rules, right? Those rules are, you can only build a building so high, you can only use so many uses, you can only put them in certain places, you have to have your sidewalk 12 feet, you have to hide your parking here, right? The whole purpose of that, right, is to create this very specific framework where each developer and investor, whether it be me or somebody else that comes in, right, can impart what they think the market can support right now as a development vision, but they have to build it to this walkable great place, right? So that is very different than the typical development process. The typical development process is a developer comes in with a very specific thing and says, this is what I wanna build. Do you like it or no, right? That's not what we're doing here. This has worked in a lot of different places. This is why the nation's moving towards form-based zoning, right, frankly. But I wanna be clear because for Councilor Sheets, right, like I can't give you who the investor is and who we're setting that framework up, and then the next step of that framework is to set up the TIFs and the NCA process for any developer benefits that can come, like who's gonna rebuild Severn Circle, we have to figure that out, right? I set all these things up before as the master developer, right? So that this chessboard is set up with everybody's buy-in up front, right? So that all the development community and investment community come in here and they know what they're getting involved in, and they're not gonna get stuck in a quagmire, right? So I don't wanna promise you what you want when I can't deliver that because it's antithetical to my process, right? It's similar to Councilwoman Russell's request for 3D imagery, right? 3D imagery is something that you do when you have a specific development proposal, right? Where you'd say, this is the building I wanna build, right? And I don't wanna misstate that that's not what we're doing in this step of the process, right? People would come in with renderings and elevations and full site civil plans and all that stuff when they apply under this zoning code to build a specific project, right? We don't have that person yet because we're trying to actually create this environment where those people wanna come in, right? So like I don't want that disconnect to get lost and to keep going because that will be problematic in the future, right? Because it's just antithetical to my process.
Right. We gotta wrap it
We
up.
can you and I can talk after
Yeah.
council about all
No,
this
I
stuff
wanted to-
too,
I wanted
right?
to
just wanted
clarify.
and we're not disagreeing, by the way, I just
No.
wanna be clear about all this, you
We're
know?
not, no, I wanted to clarify what my question was
Sure.
and why I asked the question. Typically, when you go into development projects, any development project of any sort, you typically already have a list of investors that you've worked with historically, and you have your working rapport with them. So when I asked you, do you have financing or investors lined up in place? You were not able to provide it, as you just restated. So relying on TIFs is basically saying, hey, listen, I want the residents to heavily fund this. And I'm saying, hey, listen, no, let's see what you can come up with first, and the residents can provide a gap. So that is what I
But
was
I can
asking.
do all that underwriting to tell the city what I believe that gap is. And then we've set up the framework for those developers to then come into it. And listen, have I talked to some of the bigger developers in the country about this project? Absolutely. Am I partnered with Penrose right now? And have I done deals with NRP, who's local to here? And have I talked to Flaherty and Collins about this project, just to give you a local name? Yes, of course I've talked to those folks, right? But they would typically come in and ask for what they want for their specific project at that time. What I'm trying to set up is this is what the city's offering you, right?
Okay.
Work under this framework, because I understand that it works, right? As a developer who can underwrite these projects, I know you can live with this.
Mhm.
So you shouldn't ask for more, right? That's what I'm doing here. And I'm trying to do that as your partner, right? Your partner of the city, your partner as a community, right? This is what I've done elsewhere, and it's worked really well that way because everybody knows what they're getting involved in up front, right?
Counselor Maddox, 1 minute.
Yeah, I'm simply gonna say, I agree with everything you stated to residents who are listening to this. What you're essentially stating is this process and what we're building out gives those developers permission to imagine. But imagine what they could do within the scope and the
Within a
boundaries
box that
was
we've
set.
created.
And so I want the residents, if they're thinking that we're missing a gap here, we're not. What you're doing with this zoning is you're setting them up to say, we're giving you permission to imagine, but within these boundaries and this scope, the community is saying, this is what we're looking at, now tell us what you can do. And so essentially to get to that next step, you're gonna need to pass this because this is gonna trigger that. It's gonna trigger all of those conversations to come into place. And so that's why I wanted to
can't
make sure
figure
it's
out
done
with
within
all
the
of you
framework.
as a team what infrastructure improvements need to be made until I understand what the zoning is, right? So these are like those linear steps to take.
I'm gonna move on and we will have more discussion about this in the new year, okay? You can weigh in if you want to, just send me an email. Same with you, Councilor Maddox. Please, don't lose touch. The next discussion item is a budget. Councilor Posh, do you wanna step in here and tell us what we're looking at or any questions that you have?
In our last finance committee meeting, we reviewed the budget and we went back to staff with some suggestions and some needs. I think the biggest dollar amount was the additional road work, but there were some other issues. They were able to find, I believe, $1.5 million more for budgets or for
Resurfacing.
resurfacing. Basically, they increased, I don't have my computer open, but about 2.7 million increase. Some of it was a wash with top of the hill. But I think at this point, we have enough information to, I think, vote on what we have without any kind of additional amendments, but as we've seen tonight, you could easily make amendments if we need to. But if we move forward, I think we're able to give the city and the city staff sort of a roadmap, a blueprint in moving forward. So,
Just to clarify, you are going to make an amendment in there. You're gonna make an amendment to specify the amendments proposed in that 2026 budget amendment memo. So there were 8, I believe, listed out.
Attached to the legislation.
It's attached to the legislation, but you're gonna have to make the amendment out there to amend it. Just so you know. There's no new ones that you're saying beside the ones that were in the memo.
Right, and to state that 3 of the pieces of that legislation are requests from council members One is for the 1.5 million for road resurfacing from Counselor Posh. The second is from Counselor Cobb for $100,000 for the arts assessment for Noble and Taylor business districts. And the third is from Counselor Sheets for $100,000 for Noble, for
Sheets is 150.
thank you, 150 for Counselor Sheets' request for support for a youth recreation program. I wanna make sure that everybody knows that those three requests are built into this piece of legislation, and if you're all okay with that, they will remain built into this piece of legislation. Vice President Russell.
I'm fine with that. I just want to make note that I did talk to Administrator Durham about the dog park funding, and to make sure that $450,000 that was allocated, or I shouldn't say estimated, what a dog park would cost. She did explain that it could not be in this budget, it would have to go into the next year's budget. So I just wanted to make sure, I'm gonna leave it up to Councilman Posh to make sure that the dog park and the funds of the dog park get rectified so that the community and the residents can get a dog park.
Yeah, Rudy wants it.
I'll leave it in your hands while I'm gone,
So-
okay? All right, thank you.
We also need to do some work though to get a location set up and.
No, I know that.
Yeah,
That's
before-
part of we've had we've done everything that the law director told us to do originally, but then once it went into the Parks and Recs master plan, we know we would have to do another public hearing for its location.
So would you be willing to transfer the information you've collected to one of us?
Sure, I would, you have,
I've got most of it.
yeah. Addie has it, cause we did all kinds of presentations with it, but I'm gonna leave that, would you promise me that we'll take care of that? Thank you.
Councilor Cohen.
I had emailed to the administration 2 budget questions regarding what would be the marginal increased cost of salting or brining all of our side streets, and also what the cost would be of one trackless leaf loader, to think more critically about how we do our leaf pickup. And I wanted to know if that request, if that had been looked into and what the result of that was.
I'm, Mayor,
Yeah, I was just gonna say the leaf vacuum thing has been looked into.
Not a trackless leaf loader, just to be
Oh, I'm
precise,
sorry.
not a
Yeah.
vacuum.
Yeah, I don't think
Essentially,
I don't think that was looked into.
well, I guess I'll indicate to my future council
That could be
colleagues
on
that
your
that's something,
goal.
yes, that's going to be on the agenda.
can you forward that request to me
It
tomorrow?
was sent to you, but I can resend it.
Okay. Nobody else on the budget? Counselor Petrus, anything on the budget? I know Boston's a long
No,
way.
thank you for asking.
All right, we're gonna move on to other. Does anybody have other for this evening?
Yes, I do.
Okay,
So I wanted to actually just discuss with my colleagues the junior council vision that I'm working on. So I'm actually in the process of speaking with the school board to see how we can collaborate. I actually talked to them Tuesday. I have an appointment Tuesday with them. But the vision is to create a miniature version of us, starting from 5th to 12th graders, and teach the kids how to be legislative advocates for themselves and to voice what they want to see and what they need from the community. And bring those proposed budgets as in front of council and teach them basically how to be leaders and advocates in their community. Ultimately, the goal is to long term is to have this be, you know, a great green star or a check mark on their college resumes, and open the kids up to scholarships to be able to say, I've been a civic leader in my community and I've been an asset to my community for X amount of years. And I've mentored and I've taken instruction from my youth and my elders, et cetera. And it also shows that they know how to articulate exactly what they need or the issues that they identify within the city that we may typically overlook. So I am actually, like I said, in the process of working with the school board to see how we can collaborate and move this forward.
Vice President Wilson.
Check with Director Hannah, because I brought something up like that a while back.
Okay.
Under Mayor Sarum, and I believe that it was something in the code that almost had some legislation, but it had never been used. That's when I came up with the Youth Advisory Board for the Parks and Rec. So it
Yeah,
may
I
be.
know what you're referring to, and yeah, there are a couple of youth boards, youth
Yes.
commissions, and I'd be happy to look at that.
Yes, so that may already exist, it just may need to be activated. And if you remain on council, or if you, whatever happens, then please feel free to activate the Parks and Recs Youth Advisory Board that I put in place to help get some youth involved in that. I'm gonna leave that to you too.
No, it's all good stuff. Had a nice chat, very long chat with you about it already.
Yes. Anybody else with an other? Council Maddox.
This might be, it's probably old business. I know I talked to Addie today in terms of the finance agenda. I wanted to tell our current chairman, thank you for giving me the opportunity to do the presentation for the finance. Again, I know that many of you know that I started a CDC, and one of our major projects is gonna be that. So we're in the middle of doing some MOUs with financial institutions for the city of Cleveland Heights to run this programming. And so my goal is to take this back to you guys within January or February to roll that out. One of the reasons I want to take that route, once it was clear how things were going, is my goal is to try to get this funded outside as much as possible so we can focus on taking the funds that we have and connecting folks with those homes and those other programs. And so I'm excited to do that, and so look forward to doing that in January. And I appreciate it. I know we tried some of everything with the agendas, but I didn't just want to throw it out there and then pull it back. And so this is something that I think we can do. The public's wondering what we're talking about. We're talking about connecting folks to financial literacy programs and to our financial institutions right here in our community and creating those programming. And so the council absolutely gave me the opportunity to be able to share this information. And I know we've had extensive discussions about it, and it's something that I just wanted to make sure that we hold on to and that I roll out. So I look forward to bringing that back to the city. Really wanted to get something started now on that. And so the MOUs are the first portion of this. And so now we're talking about sites, locations, and what that program might look like. So I'll definitely be bringing that back to the city. So just wanted to tell you that.
Congratulations.
Have you looked at the data that Frank Ford has offered, the most current?
Absolutely, and I think that's something, if you're okay with it, I definitely wanna come back to the finance committee to have that conversation about to connect some of this, because some of that data has drastically changed just in some of the forecasting just based on what they're looking at. And in fact, some of these programs have drastically shifted. So hopefully this is.
Congratulations.
Thank you. I'm gonna stalk you guys a lot.
Anybody else with other? All right, this meeting is adjourned at 7:25.